10 years ago, Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, and Xi Jinping, president of China, struck what was considered the deal of the decade. They signed a 30-year, $400 billion deal for Russia to deliver billions of cubic meters of gas to China. The contract dictated that Russia's state-owned company Gazprom would provide 38 billion cubic meters of gas to CNPC, also known as China National Petroleum Corporation. The deal was finalized on May 21, 2014, following almost a decade of negotiations between Putin and Jinping. The agreement was considered a win-win situation for both countries. Russia needed the money to boost its economy, and China needed, well, the gas. Hence, after the last documents were signed at the end of Putin's two-day visit to Beijing, Putin referred to the agreement as the largest in the gas sphere during the era of the USSR and Russia. The enthusiasm on Putin's side was understandable. After all, the gas deal was worth an estimated $400 billion, the largest contract in the Russian gas industry's history. This provided much-needed investment capital for Gazprom and other Russian energy projects, while ensuring Russia finally got the necessary resources to diversify its gas export markets beyond Europe, its traditional primary customer. However, as anyone would expect, nothing stays too good to be true, and the tides quickly turned in China's favor. Despite the initial optimism, the deal soon revealed its flaws, and China emerged as a clear winner in the gas negotiations. A decade later, China seems to have gained an even bigger upper hand in the gas deals that have managed to stretch on for years. But how exactly did Russia allow this to happen? As always, the best way to understand the intricacies of any story is to start from the very beginning. How it all began. A deal stretching for 3 decades seems like a long time, especially between two countries that had previously shared light animosity. However, for Russia, this 30-year-long gas deal provided much-needed assistance. It offered the potential for the country to make billions of dollars at the expense of delivering 38 billion cubic meters of gas annually. For the Chinese, the gas deal represented a steal, with the cost per 1,000 cubic meters being $350 instead of the $400 that Gazprom had initially requested. Before both countries closed the deal, Gazprom, and essentially Russia, had a significant supply globally, almost entirely in Europe. Approximately 1/3 of the EU members import more than half of their natural gas from Russia, and some of this gas is re-exported to other countries. Russia provides around 30% of continental gas, a large percentage of which is delivered to the UK. For years before striking the deal with China, Russia monopolized the gas supply to Europe, exporting the resource through pipelines across both countries. With most of its supply powering European countries, Russia represented significant geopolitical importance to the region. While Russia had maintained this position for years, supplying gas to Europe at a rate that would provide a source of foreign currency and revenue, diversification into a deal with China offered the country an opportunity to reduce its reliance on Europe. After all, the goal of any market, regardless of what resource is being sold, is to diversify its customer base for maximum returns. However, for Russia, this wasn't the only goal. Why did Russia close the gas deal? But first, did you know that data breaches are skyrocketing? Based on the 2022 Annual Data Breach Report, there's been a whopping 41.5% increase in victims from 2021. And guess what? The risk of your personal information being exposed is growing every day. I searched for my own name recently and I couldn't believe what came up. Addresses, phone numbers, it was all there. With countless databases out there holding everything from your name to your browsing habits, it's like an open market where your personal details could be sold or misused without you even realizing. For instance, cybercriminals from the SSN-DOB platform once stole personal data from brokers like Dun & Bradstreet to fraudulently take out massive loans under unsuspecting people's names. And getting a bunch of those annoying robocalls you can't seem to stop are because your phone number keeps getting sold by data brokers. But there is a silver lining. You can do something about it. Introducing the sponsor of this video, Incogni, an automated solution designed to safeguard your personal data. Instead of you spending years trying to manually remove your data from these sites, Incogni does the heavy lifting for you. And it's not a one-time thing. They keep an eye out continuously, ensuring that even if your data reappears, they'll be on it. Here's how it works. Just set up an account with Incogni, empower them to represent you, and relax. They'll handle all the back and forth, keeping you in the loop along the way. Think of it as having a personal guardian for your online identity. And with their yearly subscription, you ensure your data stays private year-round. So don't wait until you're the next victim. Try Incogni for yourself by using the link in the description. Use code GEOPOLITICO at the link below to get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan. Now back to the video. Why did Russia close the gas deal? Russia's urgency to secure alternative energy allies following the crisis in Ukraine played a significant role in finalizing the gas deal with China. About a year before Russia closed the deal with China, Ukraine was battling the 2013-2014 Ukrainian crisis, which was a period of intense political turmoil and conflict that culminated in the Revolution of Dignity. The crisis began when President Viktor Yanukovych, the president of Ukraine at the time, decided to suspend negotiations for an association agreement with the European Union. The association agreement with the EU was a legally binding agreement between the EU and third countries that focused on fostering close relationships between them on a wide range of topics. It's one of the three unique types of international agreements. It covers many policy areas, including economic cooperation, with the EU generally entering into such agreements with countries that belong to any of the following three categories: countries that have a unique historical bond with EU member states, members of the European Free Trade Area (EFTA), and prospective members of the European Union. Signing this agreement would have opened many doors for Ukraine, offering economic reorientation, trade opportunities, sectoral ties, integration, and most importantly, cultural and educational links. As anyone would expect, Ukraine was ready to jump at the opportunity. However, the agreement threatened its ties with its neighbor, Russia, especially its leader, Putin. The thing was, although the agreement favored Ukraine in many ways, it threatened Russia's influence over Ukraine and brought the potential economic and geopolitical implications of Ukraine aligning more closely with the EU. This was problematic for Russia, as it perceived the agreement and Ukraine's alignment with the EU as a threat to its strategic interests in the region. Most importantly, Russia loves to be the biggest kid on the playground and assert dominance in the post-Soviet space. Ukraine's alignment with the EU threatened its regional power dynamics. So, as expected, Russia asked Ukraine to delay signing the EU association agreement and presented an alternative association with the existing customs union of Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan to stop Ukraine from signing the contract. As expected, due to the relations between both countries, Viktor Yanukovych respected Russia's decision not to sign the agreement with the European Union due to concerns about the short-term economic dislocation costs for Ukraine's industry and the potential threat of economic sanctions from Russia. Yanukovych prioritized short-term considerations, including the financial impact on Ukrainian industries and the possible violent repercussions from Russia, leading to him suspending the agreement with the EU. Yanukovych's refusal to sign the agreement sparked mass protests in late November 2013. There was significant unrest, violence, and political upheaval in Ukraine, with tens of thousands of Ukrainian people taking to the streets of Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities daily in one of the biggest anti-government protests the country had ever seen. As expected, the US and Europe supported the protesters, and in February 2014, anti-government protests reached a boiling point and ran Yanukovych out of the country. To attempt to salvage the situation, Russia invaded and annexed Crimea the next month. However, this had the opposite effect, with many countries condemning the act as deplorable, escalating the crisis and further destabilizing relationships between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe. Hence, this strained Russian-European relationship led to Russia seeking to diversify its gas export markets beyond Europe. As a result, when the opportunity came to sell its gas to China, Russia took its chance with great enthusiasm. Why was the gas deal important to every party involved? It's important to note that no deal struck between two countries happened spontaneously. The gas deal between Russia and China had been in the works since 2004. Hence, when Putin and Jinping's signatures marked the finalization of the gas deal at the time, that coincided with an escalation of the Ukrainian crisis in Europe, the agreement concluded a decade of protracted negotiations. China, which has refused to take sides in the conflict and remained more independent from US pressure than other large economies, offered an attractive alternative for Russia. With China in the picture, Russia, which suffered diplomatic isolation from the West, mainly Europe, could continue to make money from the energy sector. The gas deal not only allowed Russia to reduce its dependence on Europe, which had been its primary market for gas exports, but was also a strategic move by Russia to secure its position in the Asian gas market, which was expected to grow significantly in the coming years. If there is one thing Russia loves, it's to hold influence in territories beyond its own. And the deal was also a sign of Russia's pivot toward Asia, as it sought to expand its influence in the region. More importantly, the gas deal also reflected the evolving dynamics of energy cooperation between China and Russia. Both countries had been strengthening their ties in recent years, and the gas deal was a significant milestone in their relationship. Russia wasn't the only one with much to gain from the gas-influenced alliance. China's interest in increasing the share of gas in its energy mix and improving its bargaining leverage in the global gas market aligned with Russia's goal to explore new reserves in the Far East and reduce its reliance on Europe. More importantly, the agreement offered more favorable pricing to China, giving it greater leverage over Russia, particularly as Russia's international reputation was tarnished by its actions in Ukraine. After all, Gazprom had been selling gas to Western Europe for an average of $380.50 per 1,000 cubic meters in 2013. However, China managed to haggle and insist on a ballpark of $350 per 1,000 cubic meters, instead of the $400 per 1,000 that Russia had been insisting on. When the papers were signed, the China-Russia gas deal of 2014 represented a strategic shift in energy dynamics, with severe implications for global energy markets and geopolitical relationships. After all, the deal pushed Europe to find an alternative gas supply after China usurped it. The gas deal also highlighted the growing importance of Asia as a critical market for Russian gas and underscored the evolving dynamics of energy cooperation between the two major powers. The negotiations leading up to the deal were complex and protracted, with central points of contention revolving around price, shipping routes, payment, and investment conditions. Although the preconditions for the agreement had been in place for years, central points of contention took time to resolve. The decade-long gas contract talks improved in the last 3 to 4 years before culminating in a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU. While the project seemed to be public information, much of the negotiation was shrouded in secrecy. Gazprom went to great lengths not to disclose the actual parameters of ongoing trade. As a result, despite the benefits to both parties, there were concerns that China may not have bargained hard enough and seemed to benefit more than Russia in some aspects of the deal. The first pipeline, Power of Siberia 1. The gas project launched in June, barely a month after the deal was signed, and that was when the figures were made public. The details of the project showed that Russia would sell China 38 billion cubic meters (BCM) of gas annually, totaling 1,000 BCM over a 30-year contract. However, one thing that remained undisclosed was the pricing formula, as Gazprom chose instead to publish annual sales volume. Similarly, Chinese customs authorities are also secretive about the parameters of their pipeline gas imports and stopped publishing import volume data years later, at the beginning of 2022. It quickly became clear that this deal was hush-hush business, with all the details about pricing not being made public, leaving analysts to make educated guesses and hypotheses of possible pricing. The plan involved Russia delivering natural gas to China through the Power of Siberia pipeline, which was the first gas pipeline between the two countries. The Power of Siberia gas pipeline spans approximately 2,400 miles from eastern Siberia to China and is not connected to pipelines that send gas to Europe. The pipeline has a capacity of 38 billion cubic meters of natural gas per year, making it one of the largest energy infrastructure projects in the world. Construction began months after the gas deal was signed, with construction launching on September 1, 2014 in Yakutsk by Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese Deputy Prime Minister Zhang Gaoli. How China gained the upper hand. As to the price, the terms of the agreement stipulate that the cost of natural gas will be based on a formula that is linked to the price of oil. This is a departure from traditional gas pricing, which has historically been based on long-term contracts and fixed prices. The new pricing mechanism reflects the changing dynamics of the global energy market, as both Russia and China seek to adapt to fluctuating oil prices and market conditions. One of the challenges in negotiating the pricing of the Russian-China gas deal was the different economic realities of the two countries. As a significant energy exporter, Russia sought to maximize its revenue from the agreement. In contrast, China, as a primary energy importer, sought to secure a stable and affordable natural gas supply. The pricing mechanism that was ultimately agreed upon strikes a balance between those competing interests, ensuring that both parties derive benefits from the deal. The pricing of the Russia-China gas deal has significant benefits for China because it ensures stability for China's energy supplies, allowing for long-term planning and investment in infrastructure. By signing the deal, China reduces its dependence on traditional suppliers such as the Middle East and Central Asia. This diversification enhances China's energy security and reduces its vulnerability to supply disruptions and price fluctuations in the global market. Furthermore, the pricing of the Russia-China gas deal provides China with access to abundant and affordable natural gas resources from Russia's vast reserves. This allows China to meet its growing demand for clean energy and reduce its reliance on coal, which is the country's primary source of air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. The increased use of natural gas in China's energy mix will help reduce environmental pollution and contribute to the country's efforts to combat climate change. However, unlike its business partner, Russia seems to have gotten the short end of the stick. While the deal is massive, it gives Russia less leverage than its natural gas sales to Europe. China has other pipeline operations and LNG suppliers, giving it more bargaining power than Russia, whose relationship with its other major partner in gas deals suffered extensive damage due to the Ukraine crisis. This deal with China could make Russia rely on one customer for their gas sales. If China were to reduce its gas purchases from Russia or seek alternative energy sources, Russia could suffer significantly from the loss of revenue. By becoming too dependent on China for its gas sales, Russia could find itself vulnerable if tensions were to rise between the two countries. Additionally, while China might have seemed like the weaker opponent in the beginning, it's known for driving hard bargains in trade deals, and it's possible that it negotiated a lower price for Russian gas than Russia would have preferred. Reports indicate China negotiated a lower price than Russia initially hoped for. Some sources say the final cost was $100 less per 1,000 cubic meters than what Russia first envisioned. Hence, using clever business acumen, China came out on top of the deal by leveraging Russia's weakened position. However, it doesn't end there. Although the Russia-China gas deal has made significant progress since its inception, it's not without its challenges. One challenge that emerged was the need for infrastructure development to support gas deliveries. The construction of the Power of Siberia pipeline was a massive undertaking, spanning thousands of kilometers through challenging terrain in Russian regions like Yakutia and the Amur region. Overcoming logistical and technical hurdles during the construction phase was essential to ensure the successful delivery of gas to China. More importantly, building the pipeline through swampy, mountainous, and seismically active areas and developing the greenfield deposits were considered expensive, amounting to up to $75 billion. Now, according to Putin, a large amount of the financial resources, approximately $55 billion, came from Russia, while China invested an estimated $20 billion. However, upon the completion of the pipeline, Russia began delivering gas to China via the Power of Siberia pipeline on December 20, 2019. The pipeline was originally designed with a capacity of 38 billion cubic meters per year, as confirmed by Gazprom CEO Alexei Miller in December 2023, who assured that they would fulfill their contractual commitment to supply 38 BCM to China by 2025. However, in 2019, Gazprom fell short, supplying only 4.1 BCM. Fortunately, the figures improved 2 years later, with Russia managing to deliver approximately 16 billion cubic meters of gas to China in 2021, a different gas deal. Things seem to be going very well in the gas partnership as we fast forward to February 2022, and a new deal appears to be in the works. About 3 weeks before staging an invasion of Ukraine and kickstarting a crisis, President Vladimir Putin flew to Beijing for the Winter Olympics on February 4th. However, witnessing the show of sportsmanship wasn't the only event on the president's itinerary. Putin once again managed to mingle with his gas business partner, Xi Jinping. What many people didn't know was that Putin was preparing to sign another 30-year agreement to supply natural gas to China. However, this deal was very different from the initial one. The new gas deal between Russia and China dictated that Gazprom, the Russian energy company, supply the China National Petroleum Corporation with an additional 10 billion cubic meters of gas annually by 2026. To make this possible, Putin pledged to construct a new 385-mile pipeline linking two existing Russian pipelines, Power of Siberia, the first pipeline that was already in the picture, and connected to the Chiandinskoye gas field with northeast China, and another pipeline in the Far East connecting two gas fields on Sakhalin Island with Vladivostok. This deal marked the second agreement between both countries, thereby showing the potential for an even stronger partnership. However, it also showed that Russia was growing increasingly dependent on its ties with China, while China didn't seem enthusiastic about relying on Russia. Still, record trade between Russia and China in 2023 reached $218 billion that same year, showcasing a growing economic partnership between the two countries. This reliance on China for trade, especially in the energy sector, has raised concerns among economists about Russia's increasing dependence on China for its economic stability and energy exports. The speculations may have been correct, because a year later Russia struck yet another deal with China. Over the years, China has been able to negotiate favorable terms for the gas deals, including the price, shipping route, and payment and investment conditions, which have been resolved in China's favor. Capitalizing on Russia's divorce from Europe, China has enjoyed years of supply of discounted Russian oil, gas, and coal. After all, a new economic outlook revealed that Russia expects to sell gas to China at a steeply discounted rate over the next 3 years. This is reportedly far less than the price European buyers will pay. So although Xi Jinping has advertised that he refuses to act as a pawn for the West and has openly referred to Putin as his friend, it's still easy to see that the country's association with Russia through the gas deals was more of a strategic affair rather than a friendly situation. From being ruthless in negotiating meager gas prices to diversifying its energy sources by signing long-term gas deals with other countries, such as a $60 billion 27-year agreement with Qatar in November 2022, China has proven strategic in all of its dealings with Russia. As such, it didn't come as a shock when China once again announced another gas deal with Russia. The latest move, Power of Siberia 2. In March 2023, Xi Jinping flew to Moscow amidst Russia's isolation from the West, a move motivated by Russia's war against Ukraine. This meeting marked the first time the two leaders had met since Russia invaded Ukraine for the second time in 2022. As expected, the news of Jinping's meeting with Russia was plastered on every news outlet. However, this was not exactly considered an unlikely alliance in the face of Russia's diplomatic isolation by various countries, especially since Russia is China's biggest supplier of gas. This was no ordinary meeting for both leaders. Instead, this meeting marked the finalization of a new gas deal that would once again provide China with billions of cubic meters of gas from Russia's reserves. During Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Moscow in March 2023, he and Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, which would deliver gas from Russia to China via Mongolia. Putin dubbed the Power of Siberia pipeline the deal of the century, stating that Russia, China, and Mongolia had completed all agreements on finishing the pipeline, and Russia aims to deliver at least 50 billion cubic meters of gas to China by 2030. Power of Siberia 2 will carry gas from the Yamal region in northern Russia to China via Mongolia. Although only recently been made public, the project has been in the works for years, even more than a decade. The Power of Siberia 2 was once known as Project Altai. The Altai gas pipeline project emerged as a significantly more cost-effective alternative to the Power of Siberia project. Initially, Gazprom had sought Chinese involvement in financing the pipeline, but encountered difficulties securing investment from Chinese partners. The Altai route was initially proposed as an alternative for the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline. This route would traverse Russia's Altai region and enter western China at the Russo-Chinese border, offering a different pathway for gas transportation. However, the plans never came to pass in the past, as Gazprom ultimately chose the Power of Siberia route over the Altai gas pipeline project. Now that Moscow aims to double its gas exports to energy-hungry China to make up for the loss of business due to the collapse of the gas to Europe market following the 2022 war in Ukraine, the Power of Siberia 2 has become urgent. Gazprom began a feasibility study on the project in 2020, aiming to deliver gas by 2030. While Putin claims all agreements have been finalized, details about the project are still in the works, and they need to be resolved before construction can begin. The proposed pipeline would bring gas from the Yamal Peninsula reserves in West Siberia to China, the world's top energy consumer and a growing gas consumer. The first Power of Siberia pipeline runs 3,000 kilometers through Siberia and into China's northeastern region. The new route would cut through eastern Mongolia and into northern China, according to a map published by Gazprom. While China is not expected to need additional gas supply until after 2030, thanks to the first Power of Siberia project, Russia is eager to sell gas to China. As expected, China is well positioned to drive a hard bargain on price and will attempt to obtain the lowest price possible, stiffing Russia, which now seems desperate to do business in China. Risks Russia faces. While the establishment of the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline offers a promising future for Russia, the country faces potential risks that threaten its position financially and geographically. One of the primary risks for Russia with the Power of Siberia 2 project is the substantial financial investment required. The project entails significant construction, infrastructure development, and operational expenses. Russia's economy heavily relies on energy exports, and any financial strain from the project could impact its overall economic stability. The delayed profitability of the pipeline, coupled with the need for upfront financing, poses a financial burden on Russia, especially considering the uncertain timeline for revenue generation from the project. Similarly, from a geopolitical standpoint, the Power of Siberia 2 project exposes Russia to vulnerabilities in its energy export diversification strategy. The project's reliance on China as a significant energy partner could lead to overdependence on the Chinese market, limiting Russia's flexibility in negotiating energy deals with other countries. Geopolitical tensions between Russia and the West, particularly in the context of the Ukraine crisis, further complicate Russia's energy export dynamics and could impact the success of the Power of Siberia 2 project. Strategically, Russia also seems to have the shorter straw. China wields serious leverage over pricing and construction timelines. This is due to a wide range of factors, but most significantly caused by Russia's over-reliance on the Asian country. This leverage that China had puts Russia in a position where it must navigate complex negotiations to ensure the project's viability. Needless to say, China would milk their advantage and put Russia at a loss. It's also important not to forget that the delay in construction and uncertainty surrounding the project's completion could undermine Russia's strategic goals of expanding its energy exports to Asia and diversifying its export routes. This, combined with technological challenges associated with pipeline construction, maintenance, and operation, presents additional risks for Russia. In the end, Russia, in a weakened state, is at China's mercy, making it difficult to make the best of gas deals as they may have before the war in Ukraine, or losing their biggest gas deals in the West. The risks associated with Power of Siberia 2, which are not solely political, combined with the limitations faced in executing the deal detailed in Power of Siberia 1, put Russia in a very sticky situation and at China's beck and call. After all, Russia aims to increase supplies via Power of Siberia 1 to 38 BCM annually by 2025. Put all together, if the plans for Power of Siberia 2 and the previous gas deals are achieved, Russia's pipeline gas exports to China will reach a whopping estimate of about 100 BCM per year by 2030. That figure represents an estimated half of Russia's annual exports to Europe at the peak reached in 2018, comparing it to the combined capacity of 110 BCM for Nord Stream 1 and 2. How did China manage to outplay Russia? China has been cautious in committing to new gas deals with Russia and has been in no rush to sign anything unless the proposal is favorable and shaped on China's terms. This is a stark contrast to Russia, which seems entirely too eager to jump into business. Admittedly, gas deals with China pose great business to Russia in the wake of condemnation from their previous stakeholders. However, China is now well positioned to drive a hard bargain on price, especially since the Power of Siberia project is ongoing for the next 6 years. Unlike Russia, China also displays strategic brilliance by ensuring it isn't over-reliant on the Russian gas supply. While negotiating with Russia on the terms of the installation of the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, China was negotiating a new pipeline, Central Asia-China Gas Pipeline D, to source 25 BCM of gas annually for 30 years from Turkmenistan. Combined with China's long-term contracts with Qatar, the United States, and global oil majors for LNG supplies, this diversification will continue to give China leverage when it comes to striking gas deals with Russia, at least for the next several years. It's equally important to note that while China might need Russia's gas, the Chinese government has prioritized diversifying energy sources as much as possible. This is a brilliant attempt to ensure supplies are not choked off in transit from the Middle East during a crisis. As a result of this strategy, most of China's energy, about 59%, is derived from coal. An estimated 20% comes from petroleum, while hydropower, wind, solar, and nuclear account for about 3%. Only 8.4% of the country's energy source comes from natural gas. Although China's gas demands might grow in the future and leave potential for business with Russia, there is still some uncertainty involved thanks to the numerous options the country has. Knowing this, China has chosen to delay talks of closing the deal where it sees a negotiating advantage. And even if the country finally decides to finalize the Power of Siberia 2 project, Russia can undoubtedly expect to give China the discounted price it'll bargain for. Still, the Power of Siberia 2 project would take a while to finalize, and even more years to build, as China will remain wary of the lengths Russia's willing to go to do business. Bottom line, Who's winning these deals? While the Russia-China gas deals might have seemed very promising for Russia initially, China appears to be coming out on top in ways Russia probably didn't see coming. Russia's primary goal in the Power of Siberia 2 project is to diversify energy exports away from Europe, where sanctions against Moscow have been taken due to the situation in Ukraine, and toward Asia, particularly to China. While this is admirable, the country doesn't have the leverage to make the most of the deal. China's involvement in the Power of Siberia 2 project reflects its strategic interests in securing long-term energy supply agreements. By engaging with Russia on major energy infrastructure projects, China aims to ensure a stable and reliable energy supply to meet its growing domestic demand and support its economic development goals. The Power of Siberia 2 pipeline is expected to begin construction in 2024 and be completed by 2030. However, many details about the project have yet to be unveiled. If you enjoyed this video, check out why China's artificial islands are now sinking, or watch this video instead.